So you're ready to start learning project number 1, and you've gone to the Dropbox and you've printed off the instructions, and you're going to use those instructions as a checklist to make sure you don't miss anything, right? Now, you've also gone to the file that you're going to use as a starting point, and you have saved that to your computer, and you've saved it using the special name, that you have to use for the assignment, and that's going to include your first and last name. So make sure that you follow all the instructions. You don't want to skip a little detail and lose points as a result of that, okay? Because when I grade it, I'm going to use those instructions as a checklist, and of course I take off if you don't follow the instructions. Okay, common problem once students get the file downloaded and they're looking at the instructions is the instructions say start with Learning Project 1 Part A, and this is Part B. And so the instructions say for you to look towards the bottom of your screen and find a tab to click on to change to Part A. And you say, but there is no Part A, and I'll get an email and it'll say there is no Part A to my worksheet. Well, if you're not seeing that tab, the reason is that your spreadsheet, your workbook, is not maximized. And now see how I'm moving it around in here? That's because this is not maximized, okay? How do you maximize it? See where I have services? Now, yours will have the correct name as specified in the instructions. It will not be called just services. Well, in order to maximize this, I find the worksheet name and I just move over here to the side a little bit, but see how I'm not down here, I'm up here, and I'm pointing to the bar right alongside the name. Double click. Ah, it maximized. Did you see that? Okay, now that it's maximized, if you look towards the bottom, and I hope the video software I'm using does not block this out, but do you see where it says there's a purple tab, ISDS 2000 LP1 Part A? Oh, I've got a little technical difficulty here because my video software, there it is, see right there? Click that. Now let me move this back down. I apologize, but you saw that tab, right? Part A. And you clicked on that, and now you're on Part A. Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to type your first and last name, okay? So you're going to type that. I will say this is Jane Doe, okay? So she has her instructions, and all I did was click there, I typed, I pressed the Enter key. Now, I'm going to come down here to question number 1, and it says that I need to create a professional 3D pie chart with the chart's layout 6. This is a particular style for formatting. Be sure to follow the assignment instructions. Well, I'm going to demonstrate it to you, but it is in the assignment instructions. The most important part of this process is to select the right information. Now, what do I mean by select? I mean, I'm going to put my mouse right on top of this area where it says Business Services. I'm going to push the mouse button down, keep it held down while I drag. Now be careful here, not to the total. Do not select the total. The pie graph just needs the pieces of the pie, not the total, okay? That is a common mistake I have seen throughout the workforce when I've done corporate training, as well as students who are learning to make a pie graph. So you just want the pieces of the pie. Excel is smart enough to say that a pie is nothing more than the sum of its pieces. So let the computer handle that. Okay, this Business Services might look to you like it is not selected, but it is. I clicked here, I kept my mouse button held down, and I drug. How do we make the graph? Up here, click on the Insert tab. Now you'll see your ribbon has changed. Come over here to Pie. Now this is Excel 2010. It's very similar in the previous version, but depending on how far back your version is, how old it is, you may have to make some updates to your instructions, okay? Now, I've got a drop-down box here. I'm going to click on that, or arrow, and I see I have 2D pies and I have 3D pies, and the instructions said to me to make a 3D pie. Well, there's multiple kinds of 3D pies, but I'm going to pick the very first one. Click. Look how easy that was. I mean, you just made a graph, voila, it was so fast. Now, we don't want to leave it sitting there in the middle of the page. We're going to have to kind of work on this just a little bit, okay? So the thing that I want to do is move it into this location that I've designated. way is that I can look at this thick border that goes around the graph. Do you see that? Now I want to point the tippy top of my mouse arrow to a part of that border that doesn't have anything in it. In other words, not the dots. Okay, come over here into a kind of blank area and click, keep that mouse button held down. Well, my computer seems to be, there it goes. It was dragging a little bit because of this video software. But see how I'm moving it? And I'm just pushing on that border. Now if you're finding that border too hard to point to, another thing that you can do is point to what I would call maybe an innocuous part of the graph. In other words, a part of the graph that does not have anything in it. Here's why I say that. Be very, very careful. Let's say I'm pointing to the graph and I click the graph. Do you see these little dots that just appeared? What Excel is trying to tell me is that the pie itself is selected. If I start dragging now, I'm going to be dragging pieces of the pie all over the place. Don't want to do that. What if I were to click here? Well, that means change the title. I'm not trying to do that, but I accidentally selected the title. Same thing here if I were to click over here on the legend. I don't want to do any of that. I simply want to move the graph. So how about this spot over here? Well, there's nothing in this little spot. So I can press, keep the mouse button held down, and move the graph. And I'm putting it right into the spot that was designated. Now, what if your graph was super huge and it's not fitting into that box? Then you may have to resize it. This is also very easy to do. You're not going to have any problem. That's what the dots are for. Now, there are dots in the middle of that border. See how when I put my mouse over it, the arrow changes? There are dots on the corners. I like to use the corners because when you use the corners, you can press and drag up or drag to the side. You can make it whatever size you want. See how it's resizing it? So I'm just going to kind of put it back. It fit in the box nicely. Voila. There you go. Now, I'm not finished yet. I easily and quickly created the graph, the pie graph. I moved it into the position that I wanted it, and I can even double check and see, what is the largest part of this graph? The part of the pie that talks about a help desk. Well, look at this. Help desk is in the blue there, and that is a large piece of the pie. But the instructions said to format this with layout 6. Do you see that? Layout 6. Okay, well, if you have clicked around someplace like I have, well, you need to come back and make sure that you click, again, in a safe place on the graph. I want to keep that graph selected. And I'm going to come up here and see how it says Chart Tools. If yours does not say Chart Tools, it's because you've clicked away from the graph. Click on the graph. Chart Tools. See how down below here it says Layout? Well, we need the layout. It says Charts Layout. Here we are, Layouts. Uh-oh, did I get to the wrong part? Well, goodness, sometimes I make mistake too. Okay, never mind. Chart Tools, then Design. You want to click on the Design tab. And you see here where it says Charts Layout. Now look where I'm clicking. Do you see this little button right here where it says More? Look at the very tip of my mouse. I'm going to click that. And it said use layout number 6. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I hover my mouse over that, it will even tell me this is layout number 6. Click on it. Look what it did. It automatically calculated percentages, right? So 35% is the amount of time we spend on the help desk. Now you know from doing your homework that a percentage in a frequency table like this is nothing more than this value, 1,328, divided by the total. So isn't this a nice graph that allows us to quickly see how much time we spend on each portion of our business? And that's a very important thing. And it's going to help us to answer these questions. Now, I'm not going to answer these questions for you, but make sure that you think about your answers and type in the appropriate answers into those boxes. But you're not done yet. You still have part B of the assignment, right? Now, and you know what? After you type this stuff, make sure that you save. You can just click on the floppy disk. You could say File, Save As, which might be a good thing to do because remember, you have some special requirements for the naming convention of your particular file. Now I'm not going to save it because I'm doing this as a demo for you.